The most hyped trailer of January is finally here, and we've officially confirmed a bunch of theories we've been speculating about. We're definitely going to break it all down today. But first, we gotta talk about the biggest new info revealed in the gameplay trailer for the new chapter. First off, Kissy Missy survived that whole mess at the end of Chapter 3. Despite all those theories about her death, the devs totally played us and decided to keep her alive. We also got introduced to a brand new character we've been getting teased about for a while, and now it's official. Say hello to Doey the Doman. And based on the hints in the trailer, it looks like Doey's gonna be one of the good guys this time. Of course, they also showed us some familiar monsters we've already met before, and we're definitely going to talk about them too. But first, let's get to the big stuff about Harley Sawyer. Not only has he been officially confirmed as the main villain of the new chapter, but we also found out he's working with the prototype. And let's not forget Poppy. She straight up said this chapter's going to be the most epic one yet. She even called the prison the creepiest place we've seen in the Poppy Playtime saga so far. Oh, and yeah, they showed off a new hand too. But that's just one piece of the giant puzzle that is Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. Go over everything we know so far and dive into all the secrets and Easter eggs we've picked up along the way. The release of our beloved and highly anticipated Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 is just around the corner. We'll cover the new characters, explore the new locations, discuss the new hand, and overall gameplay mechanics, and wrap it up by touching on the core storyline of the new chapter. Let's kick things off by talking about the new monsters, and I think it's only fitting to start with one of the key antagonists of Chapter 4, Yarnaby. Yarnaby is a lion-like creature with a body made up of multicolored yarn, officially identified as Experiment 1166. If you recall from Chapter 3, we learned about the orphanage where children were housed before being subjected to gruesome experiments conducted by Playtime Co. Yarnaby was one of those orphans, and this has been officially confirmed. In his human form, Yarnaby displayed extraordinary intellectual abilities, which made him a promising candidate for experimentation. However, after being transformed into a monster, Yarnaby turned out to be a failed experiment. We know for sure that Yarnaby's transformation was overseen by Dr. Harley Sawyer, who ultimately labeled the experiment as a failure in his final report. Realizing the scale of this failure, Harley made the decision to isolate Yarnaby, cutting him off completely from any interaction with Playtime Co staff. This isolation deprived Yarnaby of any remaining shred of humanity, leaving him able to recognize and respond only to Harley himself. While Yarnaby is undoubtedly one of the most striking monsters introduced so far, it's unlikely he'll take the role of the main villain in Chapter 4, especially with another, much more obvious candidate already in play. Harley Sawyer is hands down the most mysterious and fascinating character in the new chapter. At this point, it feels like he is the factory itself. From what we know, his consciousness was uploaded into Playtime Co.'s security system, and his body no longer resembles anything human. All this hints that Dr. Harley Sawyer is essentially immortal, but here's the big dilemma. If Harley Sawyer is the entire factory, how could we possibly defeat him in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4? The only logical solution would be to destroy the entire factory, right? And since our good old prototype doesn't seem to have a major role in this chapter, it's safe to assume Chapter 4 won't be the end of the story. So here's a question for you. Do you think Dr. Harley Sawyer will be defeated in Chapter 4? Or will his story unravel even further in future chapters, alongside Experiment 1006's plotline? We also know Harley Sawyer has a massive server database, which the player activated upon entering the factory grounds. This activation didn't just bring the servers online, it also triggered the security protocol, giving Sawyer control over nearly every device in the factory, while letting him monitor our every move. Considering that Harley Sawyer is the mastermind behind most of the experiments, while all the other monsters are just pawns in his game. Now, shifting gears to the newest character reveals, let's talk about the Pianosaurus. Honestly, this guy feels like the least exciting addition out of everyone introduced so far. Pianosaurus is basically a dinosaur covered in piano keys. They're everywhere, even replacing its teeth. Because of this, it's the only character that can't produce any sounds other than the melody showcased in its teaser. I highly doubt Pianosaurus will play any major role in Chapter 4. And of course, we've got to address the Critters continuation, Nightmare Critters. While the idea of expanding the Critters lineup initially got a positive response from fans, I'm not convinced this experiment will pan out. This skepticism is rooted in the failure of the Smiling Critters to meet expectations, and their evolution into Nightmare Critters doesn't seem much more promising. Still, we've got to discuss them, so let's welcome Baba Chops, the character who kicked off the official teasers for the new chapter. Alongside Baba Chops, we've got Icky Licky, Alistair Gator, Raby Baby, Maggie Mako, Poe, Simon Smoke, and Thule. Each of these characters embodies stereotypical teenage traits. While the smiling critters were designed for younger kids, nightmare critters clearly target a teenage audience. One thing's for sure, this chapter won't repeat what we saw in Chapter 3, and we definitely won't see any bigger bodies initiative. Aside from new characters, the new chapter's bringing in a bunch of fresh locations. We're talking a prison, caves, new work areas, and a new office that's going to be one of the key spots in Chapter 4. Let's start with the prison. It's split into the main entrance, a lobby, and the actual cells for locking up test subject orphans or monsters. The Chapter 4 trailer gave us a peek at the prison's main entrance, but honestly, there wasn't much to go off of besides a few drawings of kids' games on the floor. The lobby, though, that's where things get more interesting. It's clearly a transition space between the entrance and the prison cells. If you look up, there's a window with artificial light coming in from PlayCare. These details make it crystal clear that kids were definitely on prison grounds. But let's be real, that was kinda obvious already. Now the juiciest part of the prison, the cell block. We see tons of super small cells, each lit by just a couple of dim light bulbs. And then there's that massive metal door, straight up screams that they weren't just holding orphans in there, but monsters too. The creepiest part? Every cell's got a system for pumping in red gas, and, well, it doesn't take a genius to guess what that was for. Oh, and the prison wasn't just about holding test subjects. This spot was also used for all kinds of experiments and research. The next new location is going to be the caves, which, just like the prison, are split into 3 sections: toy graveyard, mines, and a classic dungeon. What's cool about the caves is that they act as a bridge between the prison and the rest of the factory. In the very first trailer for Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, we got a glimpse of the toy graveyard. And honestly, its scale blew me away. Mountains of broken toys piled up into massive heaps, some several dozen meters high. Just looking at it, you can feel how hard it must have been for Playtime Co-op's employees to create the perfect toys. But while every part of the prison feels significant, the toy graveyard, it's probably just another pass-through area where we'll keep moving forward in the story. Maybe we'll shoot at some nightmare critters, kinda like we did with the smiling critters in Chapter 3. The same goes for the dungeon. This part of the caves doesn't seem like it's gonna surprise us. If we think back to Chapter 3, we had a similar dungeon-like area, and it was mostly puzzles with not much else going on. Now, the mines? That's where things get way more interesting. This is a totally new kind of location, and because of that, we have no clue what to expect. These mines could have been used for digging tunnels or laying down pipes for something important. There's also a chance we might battle mini nightmare critters in the mines, but honestly, that's just a guess for now. The new work areas or offices are mostly about giving us info, places where we can find documents or VHS tapes that reveal more and more about Playtime Co.'s past. But there's one office that's definitely going to grab our full attention. In one of the trailers, there's a shot showing some kind of office with a bunch of equipment on the desk. Found way too much cool stuff about this office while making the vid, so I'm going to drop a full video about its importance instead of just glossing over the basics. Hope y'all get it. See ya in the next one.